סיפור זה מוקרא במסגרת פרויקט פאנפיקים לנוביגוד 2023 של קבוצת ספרים בפייסבוק. כל הזכויות שמורות ליוצרות וליוצרי המקור. הקראה זיו וויטיס. מוקדש לכל מי שמבין עד כמה חתולים זה נפלא. Defining humanity. Data telling someone how he met Spot. Trigger warning for mentioning data considering deactivation. Spot. When I met him, he was as far from an epitome of a healthy, desirable feline as I was from being a human. He lacked bits of fur, necessary fat reserves, and was treated as an outcast due to a parasitic infection even before I was activated. I lacked whatever the people who activated me referred to as humanity. I was rejected based on my gold-colored optics and pale skin. From what I have gathered from the colony surveillance records, Spot was rejected based on the dirt on its coat, and being outright feral before the crystalline entity devoured the colony, and went unnoticed later. While being incapable of emotions, I saw a living being suffering, so I've acted according to my basest programming, which suggested caring for any life forms. Spot was so tiny in my palm, heart beating fast, but he tried to bite and scratch my bioplast later, fighting the strange threat. As Commander Worf would say, a true warrior. For once, my strange looks and status of that, as in, who left that thing unsupervised, acted in my favor, as the recovery team at Omicron Theta was too used to me, ignoring me unless I was needed for testing, so none looked too closely when I carried Spot to the storage unit that served as my so-called home. They were too busy trying to figure out the fate of the colonists and the nature of the vitreous remains left by the crystalline entity. The first time I cleaned Spot, he succeeded in biting through bioplast, and raised an impressive fuss, howling most impressively despite his small size. Only later did I find out that some members of the Felis catus species strongly dislike water. But at least after that bath, I saw his real coat, and the color of his eyes. The next stage was procuring nutrition. From what I have gathered, cats are predators, but the colony now lacked the required biome for independent sustenance. Therefore I had to carry Spot to the mess hall. By that time, he grew used to my inhuman scent, and was vibrating in satisfaction. The reaction of the research crew was unexpected. They smiled at me and wanted to touch Spot. Replicated fish was offered immediately in substantial quantity, along with clean water. They called his presence a miracle since the colony was destroyed. But as far as I am considered, a greater miracle was the amount of food Spot could consume. An old book I have read suggested that the stomach of a kitten is approximately the size of a thimble, and the one of an adult cat is not too large either. My ravenous friend managed to eat much beyond the expected volume, before returning to my hand and making more vibrating sounds. A science officer approached us and tried to take my new companion for research purposes. This was the first time since my activation that I opposed the opinion of a sentient being by outright refusing to part with my friend. As you know, I am incapable of unmotivated aggression, but at that moment, all I knew was that this small life form trusted me to protect it, depended on me, and his well-being mattered to me. The officer yelled about me being a threat, demanding that I stand down and give him the damn furball. I simply replied that he was being unreasonable, and Spot did not belong with loud, unreasonable, and cruel people who did not acknowledge his needs. To my relief, another officer stepped in and clarified the name I have given my foundling. I confirmed that the cat in my hand is indeed named Spot, because the first time I picked him up, he was one big spot of dirt. The kinder officer said, "That answers the question regarding my personality." Apparently, Caring for a living being was a major criterion in defining me as humane. The point of the argument shifted from taking Spot from me to definitions of humanity, and I admit to using that as a distraction for strategic retreat. Later I had been presented with a copy of a report, according to which taking responsibility for a pet was a key factor in admitting my status as a person, as opposed to an object, for the first time. This was not the only time Spot saved my life. As you remember, during my first years, I considered shutting myself down and starting again. But each time this thought crossed my processor, I was held back by the need to feed Spot, to provide him with tactile stimulation, known as petting, and by the very warmth of his body on my lap when I sat down. I see that he approves of you as well. Yes, you may hold him. Just be careful. Despite his age, he is still a formidable warrior, and a proud predator.